Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at puremtgo.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com. Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new episode of Mythic Cast. I've missed you all. I've had a lot of personal stuff going on, but I am extremely excited to bring in my first limited Mythic guest, Henry. Oh man, I'm already gonna say it wrong. Mildenstein. I keep looking at it and thinking it says mild. And I'm like, there's no way it says mild.
Yeah, it's weird, but
well, welcome, Henry. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Little tired. I played the sealed PCQ on Magic Line yesterday, which went pretty late because it's like 9 rounds.
I heard that the sealed format was going to be, quote, interesting. When the Seattle GP was still going on, I was going to stay with Wizards of the Coast employee Michael Hinderocker, and it was a team sealed, and his exact quote was, he's like, "What? Wait, is that format limited?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, that'll be interesting. How's the sealed format?"
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about team sealed, but the sealed format is like pretty good. Companions are a little annoying, especially Yorion, because like the 60 card restriction isn't as hard when you get more cards. Because you get more cards in sealed than you do in draft.
Right.
So you just end up with like the restriction on that card is a little freer. So like some of those, like sealed's already a pretty grindy format. Then your opponent sits with more cards. But there are answers to like a lot of them, and the restrictions are real. So like I'd say those are like the most annoying part about the format. But other than that, it's like pretty cool because there's like a lot of little synergies. And I feel like you have to like explore more smaller synergy archetypes than like draft, because like in this format at least, because like draft is like really hard red right cycling or like really hard on mutate. But in sealed, like you play a little more, so like there's a lot of the keyword cards. Like you put together like smaller, I feel like, synergies, and just like
awesome.
It's very different from the draft format, I feel like. But
that's cool. Sealed is my favorite format. I should try this one out because I haven't gotten to yet. But before we get too far into sealed, this is going to be an episode about kind of, your Mythic drafting and achieving Mythic on Arena. But before that, I heard a rumor that you're the best Fox in Iowa in Melee. Is that true?
No, not close.
It's not
I
true.
go like 1-2 on a good week.
Nice.
Yeah, it's rough. Melee's hard.
I didn't really hear that rumor. I just wanted.
No, yeah, definitely lower down on the Melee ranking than I am.
Well, if you want to get higher on the MTGO leaderboards, checking out our sponsor over at Pure MTGO is a great way to do it. They have all of the Constructive Criticism Network over there, and we really, really appreciate their sponsorship. It means the world. We really appreciate them. They are amazing. And yeah, you can check out their sponsor over at mtgotraders.com. Quick update on the Patreon before we get into the episode. It is going to come. It will probably start coming soon as states start opening back up. I wanted to make sure that people weren't, one, giving money that they didn't have, and two, that they were supporting creators who needed it more than I did. With that being said, I am opening up early access to coaching. One of the Patreon rewards will be coaching. You don't have to, if you're interested in it, DM me. I have some new ideas for coaching, and it'd be really awesome to get some test people for this to try out kind of before the Patreon launches. So please jump in those DMs. I'd be happy to talk to you. With that being said, let's talk about drafting in this format. So you hit Mythic, and this is the first time we're drafting with people on Arena. Henry, how was that experience?
Yeah, so I normally don't draft on Arena because there aren't humans, and I felt like I think the bots are like decent, but they're just the gameplay gets stale because like you don't have that like natural progression through the format
Sure.
where like they like in a couple of days like people are start picking different things. So I thought like this format was interesting because like you really saw a shift in what cards were getting passed
Right. You know, it's
on
interesting.
Arena where you didn't really before,
I
which is nice.
find I compare bot drafting to
Um,
kind of like,
I don't actually think the bots were that bad at picking cards, but like I think this format just got really stale. Like you saw the gate stack,
sure.
and I think the same thing would have happened with the cycling cards, where just like the bots wouldn't like take them very highly, kind of like what happened with gates. Um, and then we'd just be like all the same deck. But like when a pod
Right.
can't support that many people drafting it.
Yeah, I
Um,
like to compare it to something like team fight tactics, where like, you know, you're technically drafting against other people, but I was having a conversation with Mason Clark, and he was explaining kind of the draft strategy of team fight tactics. So I was like, that's more like bot drafting than it is like
yeah,
people drafting. You know, and that's why they have so many updates on something like a game like that. So with Arena making this change, you said that you did notice kind of an ebb and flow in those drafts.
yeah. I feel like, I mean, I think I like played for about 5 or 6 days to hit Mythic from Bronze, but like even in, like day to day, like um, I felt like yes, there was a lot of content released. Like I think from like the start of the format before there was like the set review app for limited resources, and then like other podcasts like Lord of Limited.
Right.
I felt like that was like very different in my opinion. And then like you saw a lot of people on Twitter talking about like the cycling deck. I felt like that deck got harder in Arena.
Right.
Um,
So let's talk about that, because one of the things that I want to bring into this, you know, when we have a mythic guest on, is kind of talk about the biggest movers, and I kind of got to look to at what you had put, and you also are the first guest for this format. So what was the thing that you going in, you were like, oh, this is a really high pick card, and just it just plummeted.
so I think a card that probably went down the most was pacifism. Um, like going into the format, you just like you see mutate, and you see that a lot of people are going to put a bunch of creatures on another creature. You're like, oh, this 2 mana removal spell. They can't do anything with your creature that they're like Voltroning. It's gonna be really good. And the card's still good, but like I think white's just in a weird spot where white is almost always like the cycling deck or like this like black white attrition humans deck. Um, and pacifism's a little better in the black white deck, but I think just by like virtue of the fact that like white is very commonly not like the red white cycling deck, which doesn't appreciate removal as much as other archetypes might because they're trying to be more synergistic and it doesn't really fit into that.
So talk to me about that though. Like, do they not just need things out of the way? Like, talk to me about why.
Yeah,
Like, you know, obviously you want to maximize on the number of cycling cards you have, but what are the other reasons?
yeah. So like, I think one of the reasons pacifism is like specifically not great is that like snare tactician kind of makes it so your opponent, which is 2 and a white for 2/3, that whenever you cycle a card taps another card. Um, it just makes it so that like your opponent's creatures a lot of the times, if you have a good cycling deck, just don't attack or block anyway. Um, and I feel like pacifism doesn't like the card. You'll play it in a deck because it's like a decent card, but like I would not take it if I was drafting a cycling deck over a snare tactician.
Sure.
Um, and then another reason is you can still put it in other decks, but like I thought it was going to be good to stop mutating things, but in a lot of ways, just like you get, I think there's almost still a lot of value from just mutating onto your stack and getting the triggers.
Right.
So it doesn't stop that. It doesn't stop like Porky Parrot, which is like a mutate pinger that gets put on a death touch creature. Like
Sure.
there's just a lot of stuff that like makes it less good than normal for
And
like a card that's normally like super super good.
yeah, I also saw. I think it was in your notes, but I've also seen it on Twitter. I'm talking about deadweight.
Yeah. Deadweight was like a little easier to like know that it wasn't going to be quite as good just by like looking at like the stats of the creatures. And I think one of the big problems with it is like normally like you draw early, and it's like fine because you get their 2-drop or whatever. And that still happens in this format, and it's good then. But when you go later into the game, it's harder to hit their small creatures and still get value out of it because a lot of those have mutate, like would have been mutated onto, and have a bigger creature. So like it's just like hard for it to like get a lot of utility and like putting. There's also a lot of creature disabilities. So like if you can't actually kill the creature, the -2/-2 still is just like doesn't actually like make the creature bad because it still has an activated ability or something. Um, yeah, so the card's like the format is not about like 2-mana tutus where like
Sure.
it's really good. It's really good to be um, like play your 2-drop deadweight or thing, and then you're pretty far
Right.
ahead on tempo. It's just like not really what happens.
So
It's just
let's talk.
playable card, but
Sure. Let's talk about. I think that one of the coolest parts that I like about the biggest mover segment that I bring you over from limited time only though is that it's not that you're saying these cards are bad. It's saying you need to adjust your frame of mind
mm-hmm.
on them, and that's one of the cool things about limited, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like if you're getting like I also play like up to 2 like dead weights in my black decks. It's just
Right.
like I'm not picking them over better black commons. Like sometimes there's even like conversations between like removal spells unconditionally and dead weight depending on the format, and that's just like
Definitely not
not
true.
a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah, I would much
um
rather kill a creature and give my guy menace than play deadweight. I agree with
yeah
that.
yeah
So
um
let's talk about the best archetypes. So let's talk about the format. Where we've already mentioned cycling. What are the best archetypes in this format?
yeah. So like it's pretty well known I think by like people who've drafted a couple times or just follow people who talk about drafts on Twitter or something. That like red white cycling is like pretty much the best archetype, which is just um, there are cards that pay you off for cycling, like and then a bunch of cyclers, and it's a pretty weird deck because when you have all these cycling cards, you can hit your land drops and you don't want to flood because you need to be able to keep cycling cards. So you end up with a deck that's like 13 lands, like um, 20 cards with like cycling and then whatever else. Like
Yeah.
so, um, that's one deck, and then the other deck I think I've talked about a little bit so far is like Mutate, which is just the mechanic. It's kind of hard to explain, but like just like combines creatures and their abilities, and that deck's like pretty good. I think it was more open at the beginning of the format because of like the two commons that kind of make it work. I feel like are Essence Symbiote, which is 1 and a green for a 2/2. Whenever you mutate, the creature that you mutate onto gets a counter and you gain 2 life. And then Migratory Great Horn, which is 3 and a green for a 3/4, but its main text is 2 and a
Rampant
green
growth.
mutate. Yeah, it's 2 and a green mutate. You put it on your thing, and then you treat it up, becomes a 3/4. Or if it's an Essence Symbiote, that's like kind of the combo. Like you play an Essence Symbiote, and then you play that, and you have a big thing. You're up on lands. You can like hit your splash color, and at that point it's already mutated once. So if you play a card like Auspicious Star, which is like probably the best uncommon payoff for mutate, which is 4 and a green for a 6/6, which is very good to begin with, but mutate for 5 and a green, and you reveal cards until you hit a permanent. It can be a land, but you do it for each time you mutate, and so like if you have something that's just like mutated twice and it doesn't look like a threat, like it's just like a Migratory Greathorn that's like got a couple lands, and then you do that, you put like 3 permanents into play. It's pretty good. So that deck is also pretty like popular. Like just like I said, I think it was very open at a point where you would get a lot of Migratory Greathorns, and I think it supports less drafters because you really need a lot of mutate cards than the cycling deck. I think that's one of the reasons like cycling is so popular. It's like you can have there's a lot of cards at common that make it good. Um, whereas like really like there aren't as many great mutate cards at common. There's a lot more at uncommon, like the Starux, Chittering Harvester, or Archipelago. So I feel like that deck is like supports less drafters, So you don't see it quite as much, but I definitely still feel like it's a solid like second most thing you're gonna run into.
So you haven't mentioned things like the Black Red Menace deck or
Yeah.
the Vigilance deck. Are those not up there?
I can keep going. So the you really want to be the main archetypes. I guess I can go quicker for each one. Is like um, you want to be. I think it's is blue red like black green enemy. Are those enemy colored pairs?
Sure.
Yeah, I think so. Like the um, so yeah, so like the archetypes is like for each of the like the five enemy colored pairs are like blue red spells, red white cycling, black green, like reanimators slash like that also deck also
Yeah.
has menace, not menace, mutate, and then like blue green. Blue green has a lot of mutate. It also just like it's kind of like blue green board stalls depending on what you get. Like there's a lot of cards that just like you get an advantage if the game keeps going,
Yeah.
like Partial Beast or Primal Empathy. So those are like oh, and then black white humans. Although it's really less of a human synergy deck outside of Sanctuary Lockdown. Um,
And the humans deck
kind
is in the Mardu colors, right?
yeah, it's in the Marty colors. I think it usually ends up being like mostly black white. Because it's kind of just like that deck like really feels like it revolves around like Bushmeat Poacher, which is 3 and a black for a 2/4 common, and you can pay 1 mana, tap it, and sacrifice another creature, and then you gain life equal to its toughness and draw a card, and then that deck like it'll like block with a token, sacrifice the token, draw a card, and then if you have like the black white common, that's a black white uncommon, like General's Enforcer, which is black white for 2/3. You can pay 4 mana to exile a creature card from a graveyard and make a token. Like the deck like gets into a lot of games where it's facing like 3/6/6s, and it just like blocks with like a durable coil bug, sacrifices it, and then like the coil bug can return itself. So like I've seen the deck just like deck mutate decks that are like don't have a way to get through. So it's a really grindy deck, which is like not what you think of with humans generally. Um,
Let's talk about mana
so
bases really quick. You mentioned playing 13 lands, and I've seen
yeah.
a trophy deck with 12 in the cycling deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, the like theory behind playing that few lands in a cycling deck is that you can get when you're cycling a card, you're using a spell that you've drawn, um, and replacing it for a random card. And that card that you get can be a land or a spell, um, which means you're going to be your spells on average. A lot of them are going to count as some percentage of a land. So then you want to play less lands because otherwise you're going to cycle 6 cards to get your triggers, and you're going to find yourself there with like 10 lands because, and not like flooding in a way that like is unlucky. You're just at 18 cards in your library, and you're proportionately flooded. Like a lot of the times you'll be playing the deck, and you're like, wow, I have a lot of lands, and then you realize it's just like proportionate to like the way you built your deck. Um,
What
so
about other
I
mana
think there's
bases? Like obviously that deck, you're drawing a ton of
yeah.
cards.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people were going down and down and down. What about other decks? Like where are the other decks landing on like colors? I know that going into this format, people were like, "There's a lot of fixing in this format. Can I play a 5 color deck?" That deck hasn't emerged.
I think the mutate deck like is kind of a 5 color deck in general. You don't always end up in 5 colors based
Sure.
on just not drafting good cards in all the colors, but the mana base can support it. Um, like I think the mutate deck is definitely the only one I'm looking to play more than 2 colors in a splash in, because you have Fertilid, which is a good card to mutate onto. It's 2 and a green for 0/0, but it enters with 2 counters, and you can pay 1 and a green. So like remove one and search for a basic land. It's Farfinder, which is like a good mutate target because it's 1/1 for vigilance. So you're getting a big stat upgrade from mutating onto it, but it also finds a land and puts it into your hand when it enters the battlefield. So, and then at common, there's Evolving Wilds and the cycle of dual lands. So there really is just a ton of mana fixing, I feel like. Um, but a lot of decks just like don't have a reason besides splashing to play 3 colors. Um, so I feel like I've had a lot of 5 color mutate decks where I just like
Awesome.
and blue green, and then I open like a red rare like the Everquail Phoenix or the Garuda, not Garuda, a Luna Apex, the Teamer Apex card,
Sure.
um, and then an Extinction event or something. So I'm like, okay, I'm playing all these rares in my blue deck or whatever.
How are you
Um,
ranking the colors right now, Henry?
yeah, so I think a lot of people have red first. It's just like really good at common. There's like Fire Prophecy, which is a good removal spell. It's 1 in a red. It deals 3 damage to something
Yeah.
and a creature, and then you this is like really valuable text. It's like you can put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library and draw a card. So like I feel like it'd be a little worse without that text, just because like it is somewhat conditional in this format. But 3 toughness hits a lot more than like a dead weight,
Right.
and you can use like just instant speed. It's just like you can find more value out of it. And like late game, like I think that's a big difference. Like Deadweight's still a good early game card. You go to the late game and they're 2/2s now, 3/4 because of mutate or something, and it just doesn't do anything. But like Fire Prophecy, like even if it like kills a marginal creature towards the end of the game, you still get to like put away a land and draw a card.
Sure.
And I also think it suffers less from pacifism and um, Deadweight,
Because it kills it.
because I think,
It kills the thing dead.
well, because yeah, it kills it, and I think it's just in a better color for a conditional removal effect, because the red white deck like wants to like kill a blocker and attack a lot more than like the white deck. I feel than like um than like a black grindy deck. Like
Sure. What do you have
pacifism's
after?
a
What do
weird
you have
thing.
after red?
So I have blue, but I want to just make a couple more notes on
Oh,
red.
sure. Yeah.
So like then the next best card, which doesn't look like it at first, is like Prickly Marmoset, um, which is 2 in a red for 2/3 first strike. Whenever you cycle a card, gets +2/+0. Like that card's really insane, and it doesn't just have to go in the cycling deck. Like that card like ends up a lot in my black red decks a lot of times because you can give it Death Touch too in black. But like it's just you can't really block it because it's a first striker and it can have like an invariable amount of power, depending on what cyclers exist. So it's just like a really, really efficient creature that kills the opponent. And then I also think red, like it's pretty deep at common because it goes to like Dranis Singer, which is like 1 in a red for a 2/2. Whenever you cycle a card, it deals a damage and it cycles for 1. So like that's a very aggressive card. But if you draw late, you can cycle it. And then it has like another removal spell with like 3 in a red, Rumbling Rock Slide, and it deals damage equal to the number of lands you have. I think that card goes too late still. Like it does kill things, and you can usually kill the biggest thing on the battlefield with it. So like I think like that people are taking things over that card too highly. But like have like 4 or 5 pretty good commons, and it's part of like one of the better archetypes in like red white cycling. So I just think it's like a really strong color, and like if I have red cards, I'm pretty happy because I can be red white, red blue, um, and still, and like I think red black's also an archetype. It's really only like allied color pair I want to be in, because there's a lot of cool synergies, and I can talk about that archetype later. But um, so then I think I ranked blue as the next best color I want to be in. Um, I think this is like different than a lot of people. I feel like people would like. Oh, sorry. No, I ranked black second. Um, I skipped over, but I think black's very good because it's a lot of it is on the back of like Blood Curdle, which is like the premium
Oh yeah,
removal spell and
that
stuff.
card's nuts. My
It's
first
so
draft,
good.
I had 3 of them, and I was like, I did
Yeah.
not think my deck was very good, but that card was great.
Yeah, it just like lines up very, very well. It's 3 and a black, it destroys anything. And you put a menace counter on a creature. It's just like it's so good just to like watch your opponent like mutate onto something and then like make sure they like draw a card, but then you just spend 4 mana and take 9 of theirs and put a menace thing on your thing, which makes it so they can't block. So it's like very good in like a tempo sense because you can get a lot of mana from your opponent by being able to kill anything. It just kills whatever you need to. There's a lot of like really must answer cards, and it answers them. So it's like is that, and then I think like I have Memory Leak as like another very good black common. Just like I think it's pretty underrated because it's like 2 and a black and it exiles a card from their hand or graveyard and it cycles for 1, which is just like obscenely flexible for like hand disruption because a lot of the times you're going to be sitting there and you might have like a removal spell in your hand, but if they play a draw spell or a card that generates card advantage, like you won't be able to keep up and you can cast it. But a lot of the times it just cycles for 1 because you can't fit it in. I think that's a very good card. And then I think black is also just like I don't think it's like commons are the best besides Blood Curdle, but they're like, pretty deep in terms of like what's actually like playable. Because then it's like you have uh the big 2 and a 1 and a black 2/1. It enters as a Death Toucher. Life it has enters as a Death Toucher or lifelink counter, and then you have Durling Coilbug, which is 1 and a black for a 2/2. You can pay 4 and a black to return it to your hand from your graveyard. So like those are just like very good commons. You can mutate onto them. You can sacrifice them. And yeah, like I said, I mentioned Bushmeat Poacher earlier as like a card that sacrifices other things and draws cards. So like I don't think black is like the best in terms of power level of commons after Blood Curdle, but it's just like I feel like black is just always very reasonable, which is like pretty good. Just like
So then you
yeah,
obviously have blue. How do you have
yeah.
how do you have uh how do you have the other 2 colors?
Yeah, so I have blue and then white and then green. I think some people would have white over blue because they really, really like the cycling deck. And I think I'm partial to blue because I favor the blue-red spells deck more than other people, I think. I think it's like a lot of the cards just like don't overlap with other archetypes because cycling decks don't want to be casting spells, they want to be cycling cards. And so I think you can just get like Forbidden Friendships pretty late, which works really well with Of One Mind, which is a divination. But if you control a human and a non-human, you draw 2 cards. And then there's the Forbidden Friendship, which is 1 in a red, makes a dinosaur and a human, which just makes your card a 1 mana divination. Um, I think Essence Scatter is also very good. People just want to play very specific creatures that do specific things because it's a very synergy-driven format. And if you get like if your black red opponent plays a death touch creature and they're going to try and like give it an ability to ping anything and kill anything, you can counter that. You can counter a cycling creature. You can counter something that's going to mutate onto something. So I think it just like is a very, very good disruption card and does a lot of things that removal spells can't, but by like stopping a mutate creature
Sure.
from getting triggers or whatever.
Talk
Um,
talk to me really quickly. Let's move on to let's move on to the next 2 things that we kind of had written down. But I'm actually kind of curious if these are kind of combined in a way, as you've talked about this format, and as I've listened to other people talk about it, and as I've played it, the next thing that I had for you was the top 3 commons, and the other thing that I had for you was if this format was Prince or Pauper. The question that I really have is this. I want to reverse those. Is this a Prince or Pauper format?
um, so I kind of have like a fake answer, which is like that it isn't Prince, but it isn't Pauper because like you don't need rares to win. There's a lot of very good cards at common and a lot
Right.
of very good cards at uncommon, but I think it's a good cards format because if your deck doesn't have a lot of good cards, you're not going to win with 2/2 into 3/3 into removal
Right.
spell. Um, so like it doesn't feel like your opponent opened a rare and you didn't, but
It feels like
I
they
really,
drafted a deck and you didn't.
yeah, it feels a lot like it's not quite on like it doesn't feel quite like a cube. I feel like it just seems a lot like a master set to me,
Sure.
like
It,
that kind of large power level.
yeah. The power level is interesting, but also the commons are pushed. So
Yeah,
it's not as though it's because you don't have commons. It's funny because when the format first came out, everybody's like, "Oh, it's just a compan like it's a Prince format. Everything is about these companions." And then it's like, "Well, no, actually, you can just play a synergy deck and beat the companions." Where do you kind of land on that?
yeah. So like there's a couple ones like um the companions are obviously very powerful and they're kind of an archetype I didn't talk about, but if you get them early, you just get to have a free card in your hand, and also just very, very powerful creatures um, in general. So like, not only is it like you're starting with an extra card, but you always have like a card you can build around. Um, so like, I think that's the companions almost like push you to just like have to have like a synergy deck because you need to be able to do something that's like beats an opponent having like a very powerful card every game. But like, yeah, as you mentioned the comments being pushed, like Drannus Stinger is like a one in a red for 2/2, which is like all you would get like I don't know how many years ago, but like it cycles for 1 mana, and if you cycle a card while it's out, it deals the damage. So it's just like two extra like semi-relevant abilities onto like a 2/2 for two. So like you're definitely just ways to like build really powerful decks.
So let's talk about the commons then. We've established we're in a synergy format. Give me your top three commons that people should be looking for.
For each color, or
No, just your top three.
okay, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think it's just like three removal spells like Blood Curdle, um, Fire Prophecy, then Ram Through maybe. Um, so I don't feel like the commons give as much direction to an archetype as like the uncommons do. Um, but really for commons, you just want to be filling your deck out with like cards that either like cycle to get you to uncommons, removal that answers your opponent's uncommons. And there are some commons that are like contribute to synergy, like the Great Horn or the Drannus Stinger or the Marmoset. But in a lot of ways, it's like your commons are very, very like pieces that make your uncommons better. I feel like because like when I'm drafting, I'm like, okay, so I have this uncommon,
Sure.
like this Back for More, which is like a super powerful reanimation spell. So it's like, okay, I'll take Greater Sandworm like over an Essence Symbiote, and I think like if I think Essence Symbiote is a much better card, but if I have this uncommon that makes this other common good, I'm probably going to take the common that makes my uncommon good. Um, so I feel like that's how you want to like evaluate commons and all, like because like if you're trying to decide between snare tactician or pacifism, well, if your deck doesn't have any like good cycling cards and you're not cycling, like pacifism is much better.
Absolutely. That makes a
But
ton of
yeah,
sense. And that's it's funny because when I was saying like I wonder if I should even ask the commons question. It's so clear that the format has been shown to be not about drafting just good cards, but also good cards that work together.
yeah, yeah.
It's so interesting. Is there anything that you want to kind of tell the listeners about the format kind of before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I think it's like one of the main things. Um, and I kind of like stole part of this idea from like a podcast called like Limited Level Ups. It's very good, a very good podcast. But like they talked about like when you can't just be like blue-red spells, 3 Spray Dragons, like black-white humans with 2 Sanctuary Lockdowns and a Bastion of Remembrance, or like the Nusso, like Zenith Flare cycling deck, um, you really just have to like find cards that like do things together in ways that are like not as obvious. Like, and black-red is like a deck that does a lot of that. Like you can put a Porcupine, which is a card that mutates to get something pinging, like the ability to tap deal damage onto a death touch creature, or you can have like um green white vigilance deck with like 2 heat bonders, which like I played against like that with the red white cycling deck, and like I have these Zenith players with 15 cyclers, but they're at like 42 because that's just a card that gains a lot of life as a creature, and I just couldn't kill them, and I decked. So I think like you're gonna get to points in the draft format where you've taken some cards, but something's not open, and you just need to find like things to do so that if you sit down versus a companion or a cycling deck that's like strong, you can like have a game plan that does something. Like, so it's very interesting just as a format. And I think people, if they haven't drafted it, should, because it's just not a ton of fun to piece together like a lot of things. And I think we're still like learning things about it and like different archetypes. Like I feel like the black-red like random like sometimes it's menace energy, sometimes it's sacrifice. Like that's kind of a newer deck, and I think we're gonna see more of those still as like people keep drafting.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice. And Henry, first of all, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. It was really fun to have you. We've been trying to get you on this show since literally episode 1. So
yeah, I was supposed to be the first guest, but I think I had a really bad microphone or something.
Yeah, so I really appreciate you sticking through
Yeah.
and joining us on this one. If people want to find you, where can they do that?
Yeah, my Twitter is Henry Mildenson. It's my name. Very creative Twitter handle.
To be fair, I wish I had mine, so you should not be ashamed of that at all.
My @is actually is a misspelled version of my last name because it wouldn't fit.
Oh crap! Did I put it wrong on the screen then?
So it's my Twitter like name that shows up is my correct name, and then my @is incorrect. Like the thing that.
Well, I have your under your name on the screen. Oh man, it does say it does not have the N on your @.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Good to know. So if you're watching on YouTube and you're looking for Henry, that's not it. I'll put the right one in the show notes though.
Yeah, and then you can find if you run into someone named Peanut Brittle on Magic Online or Arena, that is me. I play a lot, so you might find me. But yeah, not too active anywhere other than Twitter.
That's totally fine. Yeah, is there anything you want to plug or shout out?
Not really. I mean, I guess it's like.
You gotta anti-shout out Luke or Josh. Come on.
Maybe just like I can give some like resources for the format. They go a little more in depth.
Yeah.
And, like baseline stuff. I think obviously like to get a baseline of the cards, you could listen to like the limited resources set review.
Yeah.
But like beyond that, like at that point, like if they're only going to do a few drafts, they might not want to listen to 4 hours. But
sure.
Lords of Limited has like a very good podcast that goes in depth. Limited Level Ups is another very good podcast. There's like one of the people has like 22 trophies, and the other one's some like very good like 13-year-old or something. He beat me in the PTQ yesterday.
Awesome.
Very, very good player. And just those two are very knowledgeable. So yeah, like I would listen to those if you want like more card by card evaluation. I tried to keep it kind of like you want to play like this many lands in this deck, but I didn't really talk a lot about like specific cards.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, you can find me at Spencer38. You can find the podcast at Arena Mythic Cast. You can also find me on Twitch, apparently. So while we were just recording, Henry, you didn't hear it, but
Mhm.
something happened on my stream because I record inside of OBS. So I want to just apologize to the podcast listeners for that. I'll try to remember to turn that off while I'm recording in the future. But yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/HeezyMedia, where I stream on Wednesdays and weekends, one day a weekend. Yeah. Well, once again, Henry, thank you so much. Don't forget to check out our sponsor, everybody, and we'll see everybody next time with another episode of Arena Mythicast.